My name is Samuel Guibert, owner and winemaker of Daumas Gassac, and you're watching Understanding Wine with Austin Beeman. My name is Samuel Guibert from Daumas Gassac, the Grand Cru of the Midi. Daumas Gassac was founded by Aimé and Véronique Guibert, my parents, in 1970 when they purchased an old farm in the southern France, near Montpellier, in Languedoc, without any intention to make wine. It just happened that a couple of years later they discovered that the Gassac Valley, which is a small, narrow, little valley in the middle of 10,000 acres of forest, the Garrigue, as they call it in south of France, had a very unique soil. We call it a terroir in France, and the terroir of the Gassac Valley looks like the terroir of the Côte d'Or in Burgundy. And that, plus a very cold microclimate, much cooler than what you'll expect in Languedoc, has provided the ideal condition to provide what is known, to make what is known as the Grand Cru of the Midi nowadays. The man impact should be the lesser part. The natural impact is what's the most important. And for example, when we blend what nature gives us, which means if one year I have 75% Cabernet Sauvignon and 2% Merlot, and the next year it's 80% Cabernet Sauvignon and 5% Merlot, let's be it. That's the reflection of nature. It's not one man deciding what the wine should taste. It's nature providing us what it fruits, and we work from that. So that's the ultimate philosophy. The vinification philosophy was given to us by the late Professor Émile Pénaud. The great Émile Pénaud, who was probably the most important œnologue in Bordeaux in the 60s, 70s and 80s, and who taught us the art of winemaking. And his idea, you could summarize it in 3 words: finesse, complexity and balance. Balance, elegance. Nothing alcohol-wise above 13%, no need. The great Bordeaux 61 were at 12.5, and now the great 2010 Bordeaux is 14.5. So we are more into that, not older style, because older people perceive it as you haven't evolved, but the style that, again, put the emphasis on maybe the acidity. It might not be a blockbuster that jump in your face at first, but it's one of those wines that is going to open itself over a length of time, whether 20 years in your cellar or whether it is 2 hours in your carafe or in your bottle. So the wine of Daumas Gassac really reflect that art of making wine in a very respectful way of nature. We do everything organic, we don't use any chemical, we do everything by hand, but in a way where we emphasize what nature provides us, as opposed to the star is not the winemaker, the star is the terroir and the Gassac Valley. The very beginning of Daumas Gassac in 1978, where Languedoc was only producing what the English call plonk, an ocean of bulk wine that sometimes didn't taste that good. Suddenly a guy produced a wine that is sold in a glass bottle. That alone was an achievement, and that just amongst blind tasting was coming out in the top 3 of the best tasting. So we were called the Lafite of the Languedoc, the Pétrus of the Midi, the Latour of the southern France. I think over the time people have stopped comparing and just giving to Daumas Gassac its own qualification, which is the Grand Cru of the Midi. For us, what it means, it just means that we have to keep a search for excellency, and we can't rest on our laurel. We can't think everything is done. We always try to find a better way to respect the terroir, to respect nature, and to provide the best, and also to explain that to the people who come to Gassac, because Daumas Gassac is not a typical Languedoc wine. When you come to Gassac, you taste something that is a cross between a fine Bordeaux, a fine Burgundy, a very rare Northern Rhone. So it's all but a typical Languedoc wine. Daumas Gassac is 2 wines, a red and a white, but between the two we have about 40 different grape varieties. 4-0. 20 and 20, more or less. Why? Well, why? Because we felt very early on, when Daumas Gassac was only a red produced from 100% Cabernet Sauvignon, that although it was very impressive, it lacked the complexity and the finesse we were looking for. And by adding a few more grape varieties, it's a bit like, you know, you cook a dish of rice by itself. You can eat it, it's rice, but it's a bit boring. Add some salt, pepper, spices, maybe some red sauce to the same dish of rice, and you're adding complexity to the dish. With wine, you know, in the cellar, it's our kitchen. We felt that to the Daumas Gassac wine, it deserved a few more spices, a few more salt and pepper to bring out the complexity of the wines, and that's why we've brought so many grape varieties. Also, we have the freedom to do that. We are not in Bordeaux or Burgundy where everything is stuck and you know, already decided. In Languedoc, you can still do whatever you want as long as it goes toward the best quality. Cabernet Franc, Malbec, Merlot, Pinot Noir, Nebbiolo, Dolcetto, Tannat, Tempranillo, Petit Verdot, Syrah, Condorny. That's for the red anyway. Wine is a poetry that you get to share with friends and, you know, people around. It's at least for us. We don't make an industrial product. We make a product that starts. When you have a vineyard like us 40 years ago, you could say start 40 years ago. It's a 3 years process. By the time the grapes grow and you are watching them, I mean, I live on the estate. It's almost like watching a baby growing. You see the grapes from the buds to the little berries. They're turning green, red, and then you kind of shake with fear all summer, hoping for there is no rain or no hail or whatever. Then it comes into the cellar, and 2 years later it's finally released. So it's poetry also because it's a product of the land. It's a product that is fully alive, and you see that life coming up to spring in the youth. But in our case, because we make a wine that can age 30 years, also 30 years later, you can see what it has become. I think, you know, what I've learned about wine is that, I don't know if that's an English word, but tolerance. You have nowadays a trend of people going biodynamic and organic, and it's great. You have to be careful, one has to be careful not to become an ayatollah of something. You know, there is space for everyone. People accept that you can eat at McDonald's and you can go to a 3 Michelin star. There is some very industrial wine. There is also some very fine wine. So the tolerance in wine is accepting that, you know, not everyone is an expert, but everyone knows what they like. And if you accept that, then, you know, you are fine. All we can do as vintners is preaching our own words and explaining what we do. But it doesn't mean that what the neighbor is doing is wrong. It just means that's what I'm doing at Gassac, and if I can share it with you, we can have a little bit of a good time.